Nehemiah, the 4th chapter, and verse 11. These would help. Verse 11. Also our enemies said, before they know it or see us, underline circles, very important, before they even know it or see us, we'll be right there among them and we'll kill them and put an end to the work. Then the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. Therefore I stationed some among the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places. Wow, this means something right here. The exposed, what's not covered. Posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. And after I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight. Somebody shout fight. Fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot, watch this now, and that God had frustrated it. That confuses the enemy, you guys, when we come into realization of what the enemy is doing, then it frustrates him, and then we all return to the wall, each to our own work. In verse 19, then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is extensive and spread out. We are widely separated from each other along the wall. And wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. He said, if you will fight and do what you can, which is limited, he said, then I will fight and do what I must, which is limitless. In 1982, I was 8 years old, and my mom would take me down to the Stone Mountain Church of God. And usually we didn't make it to church till Sunday nights. I don't know if my mom just slept in and couldn't get up early or what. Probably not. If she's watching, that's probably not the case. But on Sunday nights, we would show up, and I would go down to the altar every Sunday night and pray for my dad. I would pray with a big, large man named Brother Hasty. He'd say, what are we praying for tonight? I'd say, I want to pray for Daddy to quit smoking. Now, I'm not hating on anybody that smokes. Let me tell you the backstory of that. My mom was pregnant with my sister at the time, and most of their arguments was over his cigarette smell when she was pregnant, and therefore, I kind of connected the dots, and I was like, well, I don't want Daddy to smoke anymore. It must be really bad, you know? And so I prayed for that. Just a short time after that, my mom and dad enrolled me in a Christian school that was actually at that church, and there I met one of my best childhood friends, Wade Chitwood. And Wade's dad was the pastor in our hometown a few minutes from there, and I began to talk to my dad about going to his church. I said, Dad, his church is only a few minutes up the street. Wade's dad is the pastor. We got to go check it out. And I just kind of continued to annoy him. And finally, one Sunday, Easter Sunday, we got up and went to the Snellville Church of God. And my dad hit it off with that preacher, and my dad ended up getting saved. He got water baptized. He was baptized with the Holy Spirit there, and his life was forever changed, and actually ended up becoming an ordained minister. Now, all I asked for is my dad to quit smoking. But it's interesting how God responded to a young boy's prayer, 8 years old, in a church altar. You know, the Bible reminds us that our children are never too young to be touched by God. Samuel, at a young age, heard God's voice for the first time, and he was in church. Josiah was 8 years old and became king of Israel. David was a young boy when the prophet anointed him for the first time to be king. Jesus was only 12 years old when he was astonishing all the religious leaders in church with such wisdom. According to Christianity Today, 85% of adult Christians generally come to faith before the age of 18. I want to say our kids might be little, but our kids are loaded. Our kids are loaded with potential. Our kids are loaded with grace. Our kids are loaded with giftings and callings and talent in their life. And our kids are loaded with destiny. Say amen, somebody. Because of this, Satan is emptying his arsenal to attack this generation like never before. There's never been a time in history where it's been very clear there's been a demonic influence that's been released on our kids and on this generation. According to drug uses and health reports, depression, get this now, is the most common health problem in ages 16 to 24. Suicide is the number 2 largest leading cause of death in ages 10 to 14. Guys, I was trading bubblegum baseball cards. I was learning how to ride a bicycle at 8 years old. I hadn't even kissed my first girl yet. And these kids are contemplating and going through and taking their lives. 73 million babies are murdered in the womb each year. I call it murder because that's what it is. Scientifically, it's proven that when a baby is in a womb, it's just as much human as you and I are now. That's not Bible, that's not Bible thumper, spiritual talk, that's science. 200,000 innocent lives are taken without a chance to speak up and say, whoa, wait. 200,000 a day. It's an epidemic. It really is. And by the way, we're not that church that's just going to talk down to people that have had abortions, because many of you probably have. I'm not just going to talk down and judge and point fingers. We're not going to point fingers. We're going to extend a hand. And I've been on the phones and in meetings talking right now with Christian pregnancy centers around Dallas, and we're about to make a significant offering to these places, and we're going to continue to do something on a weekly and monthly basis. We're going to get more involved because we're not just going to be another church talking about a problem. We're going to be a church with a solution. And listen, what politics and what the news and what the media won't tell you is the hurt that these parents, these kids, really having kids, these teenage girls and these young girls are going through when they've had an abortion. We're going to be a church that helps them. According to the Polaris Project Research Council, 28 million people are being sex trafficked around the world right now, most ever in history. 132 million children have been involved in sexual exploitation incidents in the U.S. alone since 1998. This is from the Polaris Project Research Council. $99 billion was spent on illegal sex last year alone. The average age of victim begins to be trafficked is 12 years old. I mean, they're a money deal at 12. 84%, this is what got me, 84% of child survivors said they wanted help when being trafficked, but no one responded. Wow. Now we have national leaders in this country pushing the murder of young, innocent lives. And no more is it pro-choice. Now it's pro-abortion. If you read the agenda that the world is presenting us now we have an option. We either have an option to hate and be a bigot or be pro-abortion. The murder of young, innocent lives in America. Y'all, I got to preach what God's called me to preach. Here it goes. We have national leaders in this country that are putting feminine products in little boys' school bathrooms. We have third graders in New York being given condoms when they start school and taught how to use them. Well, that's New York. That's California. Everything there comes here. The Gender Identity Privacy Act. Anybody know what that is? It was just passed in California. It's now official that the law says if your child wants to change their gender and the parents try to stop them, that child can be taken from their parents. Are you kidding me? 8 years old. They don't even, they can't vote, they can't drive, they can't drink, they can't do drugs, but they can say what sex they want to be. Guys, I serve a God that made male and female, and he never got it wrong. You say, well, Richie, I think the church should stay out of politics. I 100% agree. I am so not that guy. I'm not a political dude. I'm really not. Do you notice a few years ago, I am not lying. A few years ago, I didn't even know that right wing and left wing was a thing. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that Democrat and Republican were colors. This ain't political, y'all. I wrote this down. I agree that church should stay out of politics, but I also believe politics should stay out of church. God hasn't changed his stance. Listen, guys, this book matters when our opinion runs out. This book has stood the test of time. He said, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words remain forever. And listen, I'm going to tell you, if you're younger, let me enlighten you. Back in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up, nobody believed that killing the unborn was okay. And it wasn't, I grew up in a Democrat home. This ain't Democrat or Republican thing. This ain't black, brown, or white. This ain't political. I like what my friend Sammy Rodriguez said. God hasn't called the church to be political, but he has called the church to be prophetic. We should not be responding to political things and saying, well, if you believe that, then you must have to vote like this. If you believe that, then you must have. No, we will refuse to let the secular world tell us who we are. We know who we are in Jesus. Where do we stand? I don't know. What does this say about it? Where do you stand here? I don't know. What does this say about it? Let me find out what this says about it, and then I'll tell you I might vote Republican, Democrat, what is it, the middle? Whatever that is. But I'm going to stand with this. Amen, Pastor Richie. Our culture used to ask for acceptance. But now it's come to a place that they're asking for approval. Our culture has that. Let me tell you why this is not popular and a lot of people's thinking right now in this room. Is because we're not in this. We're being brainwashed on TikTok. We're being brainwashed on Facebook and Instagram. And you need to be thankful you got a preacher with a backbone that'll stand up and talk about it. But it used to be just accept. But now it's, no, you need to approve it. It used to be just tolerate. But now they want to take over. And I'm going to tell you, this ain't popular preaching, maybe where we've come from, but it is where we're going. We will stand before our God. Are you trying to tell me how to vote? Nope, shouldn't have to. You should know the Word of God enough and have enough conviction and want your child to go in the right direction enough that you already know. Some of you don't know what to do. Let me tell you what, I almost showed the video clip, but I'm like, no, I refuse to give that voice in this house. But you ought to go home and check out the San Francisco men's gay choir. If you think I'm too much, if you think I'm too extreme, and what I'm about to tell you, I am not saying that every person that's LGBTQ are bad people. I'm sure they're good. There's some good people in that, just like there's good Christians and bad Christians. You know, I mean, I'm not going to do that. But I am telling you what they put out as their agenda. This is coming from a preacher in Fawney, Texas. This is coming right off Google. All you got to do is just Google it. Bertha printed this out for me. Here are the lyrics to the song that they recorded a couple years back, submitting their agenda to this generation. Are you ready? It's a song written to parents. I'm not going to sing it, don't worry. You think we're sinful. You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Finally, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Their words, not mine. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you'll barely even notice it. You can keep them from disco. You can warn them about San Francisco. Make them wear pleated pants. We don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair. Just like you worried they'll change their group of friends. You won't approve where they go at night, and oh, you'll be disgusted when they start finding things online that you kept far from their sight. Guess what? You'll still be all right. We'll convert your children. Again, this isn't a preacher. We'll reach them one and all. There's really no escaping it, because even grandma likes RuPaul. I don't have a clue what that means, and the world's getting kinder. Gen Z's gayer than Grindr. Learn to love, learn to vote. Face your fate. We'll convert your children. Someone's got to teach them not to hate. You see that key word? You see the buzzword? So what this is saying, it's saying either I'm going to tell the truth or I must hate. I would think if you have a 4-year-old heading out to traffic and I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything, I would think that would be hate. Hate wouldn't be speaking up, trying to save a life. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. For your children. The gay agenda is coming home. The gay agenda is here. Come on, try a little pride. We will convert your children here. Little boy was asked his dad, Dad, the children of Israel broke free from bondage in Egypt, right? Yes, son, that's right. Then the children of Israel trusted God through 40 years in the wilderness, right? Yes, son, that's right. Then the children of Israel marched around the wall of Jericho 7 times, and the walls fell, right? That's right, son. And then the children of Israel took over their promised land. Is that right? Yes, son, that's right. Well, Dad, I just got one question. I hear about everything the children did. When are the adults going to do something? When I see our kids being attacked blatantly, publicly, and unapologetically, I have to think our kids that we just prayed over are asking the question, when are the adults going to do something? Because this isn't the Jesus I hear about on Sunday. This isn't what we stand for on church hour. So why are we standing up for this and not against these things Monday through Saturday? Guys, I'm a positive preacher. I really am. I don't like to preach this kind of stuff. But I've got to please him. I'm going to stand before my maker one day, and it's not going to be based on how many likes I got on Instagram. I'm not going to be judged about how popular I was as a preacher and how many people were in my church. Although I believe there's more people hungry for this than. No, I'm going to be held accountable for the people God trusted me with on Sunday mornings, and my family, most importantly. What did you do with what I gave you? And can I tell you something? You too will be held accountable. God is trusting you with that son. God is trusting you with that daughter. What are you going to do? during a time like this? Are you going to fade and falter? Or are you going to stand up and speak up? So in our reading, Nehemiah says 3 things. He gave him 3 instructions. Number 1, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. This isn't fear. Don't be afraid. Remember the Lord and fight. And it's the same 3 instructions that apply now. Hear me now. Remember that God still said, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and I will answer. He still said, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. I can't dictate what happens to the world's kids, but I can determine where my children go. And then I'm going to remember the Lord. I'm going to trust Him and put my hope in Him. I'm going to teach them according to His word, not popular opinion. And then He says, fight. So as we go back to another school year, there's 4 ways we're going to fight for our kids this year. Write these down because this is our assignment. This is our plan of action. Number 1, we're going to pray intentionally. We're going to pray for our kids. I remember every morning when my kids were younger, I'd be driving the car. I'd be trying to hold my coffee in my hand, and I'd be reaching back there and praying over my girls. I plead the blood of Jesus. No weapon formed against them will prosper. Psalm 91, angels, no weapon formed against them. All of these things, I would pray and plead over them. We're going to pray intentionally over them and for them. We're going to pray with them. And then we're going to teach them how to pray. And we're going to pray for our school system. They got a tall order, especially Christ-centered principals and teachers. They got a tall order. And we're going to pray that God would be with them and lead them. We're going to pray that God would make the right lawmakers and put them in place to protect our children. You know, last night, I almost changed my mind on this sermon. Because I know the backlash. I know what you get when you preach. This ain't my first rodeo, y'all. This is 19 years of this. I know the price you pay when you preach something like this. And I almost didn't do it. And I was like, you know what? My kids are grown. Y'all just need to figure it out. I want people to like me. I mean, we're trying to grow a church, not shrink one. You know? And then I got up here in the first service, and I saw these precious babies singing. And I can't be silent. I'm not built like that. I'm built different. I can't be silent. So we're going to pray intentionally. We're going to pray that covering is over them and protection from violence. From everything that could. We're going to pray intentionally. Number 2, we're going to stand courageously. We're going to stand for this book. We're not going to stand as Democrats and Republicans. We're not going to stand as liberals or conservatives. We're not going to stand as black, brown, or white. All of the things that the world tries to. When I came to Christ, I am a kingdom man. And you are a kingdom woman. And we're going to stand for truth. We're going to stand for righteousness, for morality. And watch this. More than that, we're going to stand together. Because here's the deal. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I ain't leaving your church over because you don't agree with me. And we can stand and we can walk hand in hand, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything. So we're going to stand together. Number 3, we're going to speak boldly. We're going to speak up in conversations. We're going to speak up online and on social media. Why? I said this in the last service. We have the answer. We're not the answer. We have the answer. Why are we the ones quiet? Has that ever dawned on anybody? Why are people living a lie way more vocal than us? Maybe you hadn't asked the question. I have. So we're going to speak boldly in love. You ain't got to be blasting people and be ugly. But speak up for this generation. They need it. Listen, I'm not preaching to you. I'm preaching for you. I'm preaching for these kids and these teenagers that are going back to arguably now, maybe inarguably, the greatest battlefield in the world, the public schools of America. I'm going to speak boldly. Some of you need to speak up in school board meetings. Don't complain about it. Speak up. Some of you don't even know when the next school board meeting is. Find out. Get involved. And then number 4, act accordingly. Act accordingly. What do you mean act accordingly? Get involved in your child's life. Get involved in what there's. I am blown away sometimes that I find out they're 8 years old and they got you blocked on TikTok. I mean, they're 10, y'all, and they got locks on their bedroom doors. Can I just tell you something? Let me just release every parent from the pressure in this room. You have the right to go wherever your child goes. I don't know who put this thinking in our mind, but they need their privacy. Nope, they need a parent. They need somebody that'll stand up and get in every nook and cranny and say, no, I'm not sure about that friendship. I'm not sure about that situation. No. What do you mean you're going to be home at 12 because the Joneses get home at 12? You're going to be home when I tell you to get home, and you're lucky that I'm even letting you leave. And you ain't got to be a jerk. You ain't got to be an ugly whatever about it. But you are the parent. And the world calls it sheltering, and God calls it parenting. Pray intentionally. Stand courageously. Speak boldly. Act accordingly. Run for school board. I put that in my notes. Some of you need to pray about running for school board. And I'm really going to mess with some of you just because y'all quieter than the other 2 services. If you are a kingdom man or woman and you will push for kingdom values and you will run for school board in this town, you're going to get a platform in Free Life Church. We'll put a table out there and say, go see that person for more information. Can they do that? Yep, we've already checked it out. We can do it. But we're going to check you out now. We're not just going to be, well, I feel like I need to run for office. Are you a tither? Because if you'll rob from God, you'll rob from us. I'm giving an equal opportunity for everybody in here to get offended with me. I've already had a couple walk out. I'm sure they just had to go to lunch. But be a teacher's aide. Get involved in your kids. Act accordingly. Join our team, Reaching a Generation Now, so they won't need rescuing later. That's more than just a plug or a promo, y'all. Let me tell you why you want a strong children's ministry in youth ministry. Because if this is more attractive to your kids, this will influence your kids. If that's, you need to be serving and giving of your finances, because we are partnering together to reach your kids now, so they won't need rescuing later. So we're going to pray intentionally. We're going to stand courageously. We're going to speak boldly. And we're going to act accordingly. And Nehemiah 4:20 says, if you will fight, our God will fight for us. Stand on your feet all over this room. Please, nobody leaving unless you just have to. I'm going to read this story before we close. When Billy was 12 years old, his mother abandoned him on a street corner in Pinellas Park, Florida. She said, I can't do this anymore. You wait here. I will be back. Billy stayed on that street corner for 3 days, but his mother never came back. David Rudeness, a local mechanic and committed Christian, found him there and took him to his home. Rudeness offered to pay this young man's way to a Christian summer camp. It was during this camp that the 12-year-old Billy committed his life to God. While he was a teenager, young Billy was given a job in his local congregation at church. After his high school graduation, he was encouraged to attend a seminary. He studied at Southeastern University and obtained a degree in theology. Billy returned to his home church and pioneered one of the first bus ministries in the United States. Each week, he and his team picked up thousands of children from the projects of St. Petersburg, Florida. He presented a weekly program that included games, music, puppets, and a weekly message. After years of success in Florida, he was invited by Tommy Barnett to replicate this ministry in Davenport, Iowa. Within 4 years, Barnett and young Billy helped create one of the largest Protestant churches in America. Don't miss this now. In 1979, Bill Wilson, or Billy, moved to one of the roughest areas in Brooklyn, New York, Bushwick. In 1980, armed with a bullhorn, a station wagon, and Yogi Bear costumes, Bill created Metro World. Once again, Wilson's concepts of a bus ministry became extremely successful. Even with multiple weekend services, his congregation outgrew the former brewery that serves as his church in Bushwick. With no more room to house any new visitors to his church, Wilson decided to take his church to the streets. In 1988, he created the idea of a sidewalk Sunday school in which he converted trucks to serve as portable stages, from whence his team of ministers could share their message. This concept became highly successful, and these collective congregations now number more than 250,000 children in attendance each week globally in 12 countries around the world. But here's the thing. All of this started when one simple Christian mechanic saw a need. Didn't run from it, didn't hide from it, but ran to it and met that need. Not a preacher, not a singer, not a church leader, just a Christian mechanic that saw a need and filled it. Can I tell you that our kids don't care how much we know until they know how much we care? And all over this room, I'm going to ask you, warfare is real in 2024. If you knew the hell that I've already had to fight just to preach this sermon 3 times today. And there's no telling what's waiting on me in Facebook and Instagram and the messages and the online stuff and all that. But if you will stand, I'm going to stand. I'm going to stand if I'm the only one here next week. But if you will stand, and I will stand, there are a lot more for us than against us. And what would happen if young, old, rich, poor, black, white, brown, Democrat, Republican, people, all walks of life came under one roof and for one purpose? To please Jesus. That's what I want. I don't want our children to grow up confused about their gender. I don't want our children to grow up doubting if God's even real. I don't want our children growing up and pregnant at 12. We'll still love them. It's not about that. It's just about right now they don't have to grow up and we go see them in rehab. I don't have to do another funeral of someone taking their life. It's not a fear tactic either. This is brutal honesty. Saying if we can make a decision here and now to stand and partner together to reach a generation and reach your kids that you love more than I do. But we're here. We have a phenomenal next gen team. You got a pastor that cares. And we're about to give a 43,000 square foot facility to them. And if you will partner with me, we will reach them now so they won't need rescuing later. Our kids are in a crisis. And we don't have the luxury to disagree on petty things. We got to stand. Lift your hands all over this room. God, use me. Come on, just say it. God, touch my children. Touch my little girl, my little boy. Lord, I give you my marriage. I give you my family. I'm going to do my part and I'm going to fight. And you gave me a promise through Nehemiah that if I will fight, you will fight. We love you, Jesus. Come on all over this room just to begin to talk to him for a second.